Hey, hello. How's everybody doing? It's Tuesday, October 11th, 2022. This is the Slate. We are a DraftKings show. We air Monday through Friday, just in that 5 o'clock Eastern hour. We will take you up until just about 6 o'clock on the stream that you have found, whether it be Twitter via DK Nation or our streams with the comment section on YouTube and Twitch. That allows you, the people, to weigh in if you have any questions about the baseball playoffs and the NFL. We pretty much don't take days off anymore in the NFL, but we will talk some baseball. There is a game happening right now as we speak. Brendan Glasheen, your host, with two of our very best that cover baseball over at DK Nation, Gary and Thorne and Matt LaMarca. Both of these guys are steady contributors to baseball and the Tuesday program. So great to have you all with us. I was, just to full disclosure, we're in our little meeting here at Zoom or whatever you all use these days. And these two are kind of going back and forth. And I'm like, what the hell are they talking about? Now I understand. Blue Jays fan has his heart broken by the Seattle Mariners. And then Mets fan has the Padres absolutely bleep storm them on the road at Citi Field. So now I understand what's happening here. So you both had your hearts ripped out. Do you even want to talk about baseball? Would you rather talk about cricket or something else? How are you both, Gary and you first, how are you processing Seattle, who is, at least they're winning. They're beating Houston now, so maybe you just ran into a good team.
Yeah, I guess Team of Destiny is a tough thing to run into. Believe me, I had been sort of like
Team of Destiny. I wonder who said that first.
Yeah, I know. I wonder who's brought it up before. There's just so many diehard Mariners lifelong Mariners fans in the DraftKings office. So it's tough. But no, it was strange. Like, you kind of see how these MLB narratives sort of progress over the years. And the Padres are like the poster child for this. Everyone loved the Padres because they were young and exciting. Then they underachieved. Then everyone hated the Padres. I mean, the Tatis stuff is not helping, obviously. And now it's like, oh my God, I can't believe the Padres won a first-round series. The Blue Jays are sort of in the midst of that right now, where they were everyone's fun team last season, 91 wins. Wow, they played in 3 different stadiums. That's so amazing. They overcame that, blah, 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 blah. Vlad makes one quote. Suddenly they're like the biggest disappointment in all of baseball. Everyone hates them. And they're going up against this Mariners team that hadn't made the playoffs in 21 years. And everyone was like, oh my God, I want to see a playoff game in Seattle so badly. And it's weird when you're cheering for your team, but knowing that like everyone is viewing them as the villain. It's kind of a strange circumstance to be in. So I was already fighting that all weekend. And everyone got their storybook ending except for me. So
The Mariners are leading 6-3 in the 5th. Justin Verlander, for just the 3rd time this season, has allowed 4+ earned runs in a start. One of those was against Seattle at the end of May. The Phillies, they won earlier today. So we've got 2 more series to look forward to, including LaMarca. The Padres, as Gary just mentioned, the Padres will face the Dodgers in the next round. But how are you compartmentalizing your fandom while also trying to pay attention and maybe have some action on these games going forward?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm disappointed, of course, but I'm happy with the Mets season. I know that everybody out there loves to make jokes at the Mets expense and, oh, they blew a 10.5 game division leads, new owner, same Mets, whatever. They won 101 games. They just happened to play in a division with a really good baseball team in the Atlanta Braves. And I think that a lot of what the Mets did this year was really positive. And they have a big offseason coming up. A lot of guys that are eligible to be free agents. So we'll see what happens. But with Steve Cohen as owner and the willingness he has shown to spend money, I don't know how you can not be excited still as a Mets fan, right? I think the days are only going to be better for us.
Judging by your commentary,
big off season in many ways.
Judging by that, judging, sounds like you have a good outlook on things and you have a strong head on your shoulders.
I still think that Aaron Judge stays with the Yankees, but if Steve Cohen wants to let Jacob deGrom walk and Brandon Nimmo walk and make the Godfather offer to Aaron Judge, I've gotten to the point where I don't think I'd hate that.
All right, cool. Like we said, we've got 2 more games to get to. We will also transition to the NFL and look ahead to week 6. There are teams on the bye, so I'm curious to get your thoughts on what teams are in action and how that might affect your, I guess in a way it kind of helps be more selective in DFS when you make your lineups this week. There's less to choose from, so you can feel better about, but there's difficulties and there's also some easier ways to go about it, I suppose. So Garrett Cole, his Achilles heel, guys, has been the home run ball late in his starts, right? That's been his issue. The Yankees bullpen's kind of Cleveland's strength is the bullpen. So if Cleveland can get a half decent start out of Cal Quantrill, who is both of these guys are only facing Cleveland for the 4th time combined. Cole faced him twice. Quantrill got him once in April. But I'm not too sure if this dude Quantrill has got it in him. I say all that. Garrett Cole, as we've discussed, has had problems getting late into starts. So you see some money coming in on an over. Currently, the under is juiced at -115. Gary, and how do you assess this game and this series with Cleveland? Do they have a sniff? They feel like a team folks could rally around the Guardians, or do the Yankees handle their business?
I mean, it's for game 1 in particular. You bring up a very good point, which is the Achilles heel of Garrett Cole this season has been the home run ball, almost exclusively. That is the flaw, and it's a flaw we see with a lot of very talented power pitchers. I mean, it's, something that we've talked about on and off, even with Max Scherzer in the past. And the thing about this matchup specifically for a flaw like that is you could arguably not draw a better team than the Guardians if that is your flaw, because they just do not possess any power. Really outside of Jose Ramirez, who in the latter stages of the regular season was just not hitting for power anyway. It's one of the reasons that at season's end, the Guardians had a 129 isolated power. That was the 2nd lowest mark in all of baseball. The only team with less pop was the Detroit Tigers. And that's never a category of team you want to be associated with. So that's worrisome on that front for the Guardians. And then when it comes to Cal Quantrill, there's something to be said about a pitcher who outperforms his ERA metrics because he's good at sort of limiting hard contact, inducing soft contact. I mean, there is a little bit of a gap in some of those ERA estimators because of that specific skill set, which Quantrill does have. I just worry about his matchup with some of these right-handed batters for the Yankees, because Quantrill this season has only struck out 12% of the right-handed batters he has faced. He only walks 4% of them as well, which basically just means you're going to have batted ball events. And at the end of the day, if you want to beat the Yankees, batted ball events to Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton are kind of what you want to avoid. So I just think in general, this is a pretty good spot for the Yankees. I would probably consider taking them on the run line tonight. I just think they match up really well against the Guardians in this spot.
Cal Quantrill. So yeah, right. So for Garrett Cole, the home run ball is crucial because if guys are on base, then that puts you in a really bad spot. But for the most part, when you look at his ERA and his xERA, they're about the same. xERA of 3.31, had an ERA of 3.5 this season. Quantrill has been luckier. It's been almost a full run differential between his ERA of 3.38 and then an xERA of 4.5 or 4.3. So just shy of 4.5. So he's been a luckier guy this year, make no mistake. LaMarca, how do you assess just the series, Guardians, Yankees, and how about game 1?
Yeah, I do. I agree with basically everything Garion said. It's a great matchup for the Yankees. I think that if you talk to fans of the Yankees, this is the team they wanted. They did not want to play the Tampa Bay Rays, who have their number. The real concern with the Yankees is their relief pitching, which is something that you haven't really been able to say in, 3 decades. Like ever since Mariano Rivera came on the scene, the Yankees have been really good in that department, and they're a little bit shaky in the back end now. So I don't know if that necessarily comes back to bite them against the Guardians, but it is something to consider. I did write up some best bets. My favorite bet in this series was you can take the Guardians over 3.5 homers. It's an interesting bet. But given the amount of homers that it's not just Cole, it's the entire Yankees staff, with the exception of Nestor Cortez, they all kind of struggle with the long ball this season. So you could take over 3.5 homers. I know the Guardians don't hit a lot of them, but out of their 3 runs in the wild card series, they all came on homers. It's how you score runs in the playoffs. You're not going to string hits together against good pitchers. So it's all about, can they make this series go long enough, right? And I think they can. I think they can make this a 4 or 5 game series. And if that happens, I think they can get to 4 or 5 home run.
So folks looking for that playoff series props, of course, under baseball, then series total homers, and you like over 3.5 for the Guardians?
For the Guardians, yep.
I was seeing today too, they have these, there's never any shortage of amazing baseball metrics. But one of the guys who would have benefited the most this season from playing all his games at Yankee Stadium would have been Steven Kwan. His home run total would have skyrocketed at Yankee Stadium just because he's so good at going the other way.
Right.
And some of those fly balls that were ending up on the warning track or going off the wall at Progressive Field would have been easy home runs over the short porch at Yankee Stadium. So I'm not saying, take Steven Kwan to hit a home run tonight or anything like that. But I do think if he pops one this series, it won't be the most surprising outcome in the world.
Guardians have been good all year putting the ball in play too. Their strikeout rate's really low. So
that's their key. That's their whole identity.
Right. So maybe they get a hold of one on Cole, and we'll see. Curious too, if the pitch count goes up, how much trust does Aaron Boone have in that bullpen? Like, how long does he stretch him out? Or if you're in a close game, 6th, 7th inning, pitch count is creeping up towards 100 pitches. Does he say, I'm going to leave him out? Like, there's that balance, right? We're like, I don't know if I love my bullpen right now, and I've got my ace out there, but his issue is a home run. So if the guys get on, I'm fascinated by that. I mean, that's October in general. Forget these two teams clashing, putting the ball in play well against a guy who can allow a home run late in his start. All right, let's go to the other series that begins tonight between the Padres and Dodgers. I've heard basically anything I've read or heard. It's all, every angle I've heard is Dodgers' favorite. Like, Urias is a Cy Young candidate. This offense is so good. For the Padres, as folks know, you play over the weekend, you can't stack your rotation to have your front end guys go up against how the Dodgers want to fix it. And that's the big difference to me between the 1-game playoff versus now the series of going from a 1-game playoff to a 3-game series, then to a division series if you advance. So, Gary, is there any angle you like on the Padres for the series, or is it all heavy Dodgers?
I mean, it's tough because the way it does set up, you're unfortunately in a situation where if the Padres are going to win this series, they almost have to win games 2, 3, and 4. Because I just don't have a lot of trust in Mike Clevinger right now, and he's lined up to be the game 1 and game 5 starter. I mean, Clevinger.
Real quick, that's a really good point because the American League gets the benefit of that day off.
Mm-hmm,
so
exactly.
Verlander, as much as he stunk today, yes, he did. It's 6-3. He allowed a lot of runs and was not good. He could start again in game 4 on regular rest. So if that you don't get that same advantage in the NL.
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive storyline. And again, like you said, the fact that, yes, I'm sure every Padre fan would have taken winning that wild card series in 3 games, but having it go 3 games, you're now in a position where Mike Clevinger becomes one of the most important pieces of this series. And while Clevinger is certainly someone who has shown incredible upside in the very recent past, I mean, he was one of the best pitchers in the American League for a stretch with the Guardians. The strikeout numbers have fallen off a cliff this season. He's had serious issues with the home run ball. If we want to talk about pitchers who've had home run issues as of late, he's giving up almost 2.5 opponent home runs per 9 going back to the start of September. For the season as a whole, 1.9 home runs per 9 to opposing left-handed bats. That's a big problem when the team you're facing has Freddie Freeman and Max Muncy and Joey Gallo and Cody Bellinger. Like, sure, Bellinger and Gallo, not amazing by any stretch of the imagination, but this is a Dodger lineup that is almost designed in its bottom half to just be like, either you're going to strike out the side or you're going to give up 2 solo home runs. And Mike Clevinger is certainly the type of guy who can give up a couple solo home runs. So I think I almost like the over in tonight's game just because I have that little faith in Mike Clevinger to get the job done. And, Urias in his own right, not a dominant strikeout pitcher, a very good pitcher, don't get me wrong, but I think the Padres, who have some very good bats against left-handed pitching in their own right, can probably scratch across a few runs tonight. So my initial lean would be to the over.
do you think, Lamarco? What do you like in this series? What do you like in tonight's game? What do you think?
I think the Dodgers are just going to absolutely obliterate this team.
Yeah.
They kind of did during the regular season. They were 14-5. They scored 109 runs in those games to 47 for the Padres. They had a plus 62 run differential against one team. That's pretty ridiculous. And they're just built for playoff baseball. They have an outstanding bullpen. They have good enough starting pitching. They have a lineup that can take you deep, as Gary mentioned, 1-9. And I'm a firm believer that that's how you score runs in the playoffs. Like, people like to talk about how the home run ball doesn't play in the playoffs because the pitching is so good. I think it's the exact opposite. And that take is starting to kind of become now what people are believing. Like, you need the home run ball to score during the postseason. And the Dodgers can clearly do that. And despite what the Padres did against the Mets in the first round, they are not a team that hits the long ball. They do not have very much slugging. Trent Grisham hit 2 homers against the Mets in that series. He's batting like 160 on the year, right? I would not expect a repeat performance from him. Same from Jerickson Profar, right? So, like, I just don't see how this team can contend with the Dodgers. I think that, a sweep, the last time I saw, I think it's roughly plus 300. If you want to bet the Dodgers to sweep, I like that angle.
Yeah, even like, so the favorite, so that kind of bet that you just talked about, I think the favorite is plus 300. You can get Dodgers in 4. And then the second most likely outcome would be Dodgers in a sweep and then Dodgers in 5. Okay. You guys have any more thoughts on what else is going on here, or are you baseballed out?
Just kind of funny.
I do think the Mariners are going to win this series.
Oh, okay.
Ooh, all right.
I picked them as my upset. They were my upset special. I like the way that I think they have a team that is constructed to play well in the playoffs. I like their bullpen a lot. I mean, everything that they do, the Astros do a little bit better. So it's not like I'm saying that the Mariners are, this juggernaut, but I do think that the way that the series was priced is not an accurate reflection of where these two teams stand currently.
I will say, like, I'm very curious to see what Luis Castillo looks like in game 2, because his average fastball velocity in game 1 against the Blue Jays was almost 2.5 miles per hour faster than it had been in the regular season.
Must have put some red hot on his ears.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. But like, if he literally has like a next level, he's able to go to, like, if he was throwing 95% during the regular season and now he's maxing out, if that's a real thing, he's disgusting. And then you've even got, like, it was a bullpen appearance, so, you can't read too much into it, but even like George Kirby came out of their bullpen in game 2 and was throwing 100. So if there is a next level to this starting pitching staff, if Robbie Ray is suddenly your 4th best starter, that is a very dangerous position to be in for opposing teams.
I am not prepared for insufferable Steve Buchanan, because not only will he get the Mariners part right, then you get the Robbie Ray Cy Young from last year.
It's all right. They'll Seattle on the West Coast, and you watch Ken Griffey, you watch Ichiro, and then there's that long drought, and you live with it every single season. He deserves time to really celebrate his childhood team. I'm going to give him that.
You know what, though? In all seriousness, the Mariners fans, the actual ones, not the Buchanans of the world, they do deserve something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I wish nothing but the best for them.
You know what I find pretty cool is, and it probably varies, is you can get live look at the World Series and league winner odds while these games are happening. And it's pretty amazing to see the Mariners all of a sudden climb up to even with the Astros at plus 250. Same would go for
game 1 of a 5-game series is massive.
Yeah.
If they hold on and win this game, the Astros are now in a must-win game in game 2. You cannot go down.
That's like 0-2. That weird thing where the disadvantage we were just talking about with the Padres, if the Padres can somehow win the game tonight, like the Mariners seem like they're on pace to, now you're heading into game 2 with a 1-0 lead and your ace on the mound, which is exactly what's going to happen for the Mariners. Like, it's in a weird way, there was so much pressure on the Astros to win this game. And if they don't, I mean, wow, it's a huge hole to dig out of.
Yep.
I'm kind of blown away by this. I mean, I realized they'd have to win the next round as well, but the fact that they're both at the same price to win the league and they would have a 1-0 lead in a series already out of all four of these teams, it's interesting. All right. What do you say we go to the NFL? Not a ton of news today outside of
I
like
said NHL for a second. I was like, oh God, no, I don't care. It's opening night. No.
Oh yeah, tonight is opening night in the NHL, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, I don't have much to weigh in on Devontae Adams. He knocked over a photographer, but we don't know if he's going to get suspended or not. That's going on. But teams are on the bye this week, so I feel like Vegas, meaning the bookmakers, our friends at the DraftKings Sportsbook, they're going to be a little sharper this week because there's not as much to look at. That's just my hunch. But Garion, what's your big take for week 6? You have anything that jumps out to you? Like, we've got enough of a sample now. We kind of know who teams are, sort of. We know teams that are really awful, like Carolina. That's a whole situation. Yeah. But it feels like we kind of now, we're at the point in the year now we can use data from this year and make some accurate guesses about what teams are.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I think I said Sunday night, I was very curious what the shelf life of Matt Rule was, because part of me was sort of thinking, like, if you're looking towards the future, he's proven himself to be so good at losing games. Maybe you just hold on to him and like try to lock up the first pick. So that was going to be my sort of like week 6 and beyond sort of take. And that got wrapped up in a nice little package yesterday. I think just like the rest of the world, I'm so excited for Bills Chiefs. I mean, you were saying like we kind of have a sense of where everything lies in the landscape of the NFL currently. This game's incredibly intriguing for so many reasons. And I think first and foremost, just, the Chiefs are already having a very good season, and maybe your perception of them changes slightly based on, a slightly underwhelming performance last night against the Raiders. But this is a team that came into that game first in the NFL in EPA per play. Like they lost Tyreek Hill and have not missed a beat offensively. And yet in a game at Arrowhead, the Bills are currently favored. Like that's, and not by like a point, by 2.5. That is basically means
this
that,
reminds me. This reminds me of opening night, right? Opening night, Rams home, defending Super Bowl champions. How are the Bills 2.5 point favorites against the Rams at home on ring night?
But like there were doubts about the Rams. Like maybe they weren't as loud as they are now. And it's in 2020 hindsight, it's always easy. But we spent a lot of August being like, can Matthew Stafford throw a football? That's kind of like a serious thing where, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce still play for the Chiefs. Arrowhead still got Arrowhead fans. I'm just, it's very interesting to me that basically the books are telling you that on a neutral field, they'd have the Bills by 5 points against the Chiefs right now. Like that's a huge number. And it's a little shocking to me. So I'm just curious to see how this game plays out. Do the Bills validate that confidence? And at that point, I mean, is there any stopping them on the way to a first round bye? Probably not. So I know it's the basic answer, but honestly, this is the game I'm just incredibly excited to watch.
What I love about this game too, I saw this stat this morning on Patrick Mahomes. It's not as big of a sample as a Rodgers, a Russell Wilson, or a Brady. But with that win last night, he improved to 12-9 when trailing by 10 points or more in a game. And what's the book? That's nuts, right? What's the book on this Buffalo team? Besides the win against the Ravens, before that, well, the Bills, they can blow you out, but can they come back in games? Can they win close games? Can the Bills win close games? Well, this sets up to me, based on the number, if Buffalo pulls ahead, does Patrick Mahomes have the magic in him to do the unthinkable again? So you've got two teams that go in different directions. They thrive in different directions. The Chiefs don't do really well setting the tone early. Buffalo does do that well. But the Bills don't do coming back all that well, but the Chiefs do. So I wonder, just once this game starts, if Buffalo gets up early, where does that number climb to? I mean, the better question is, what is this number by Sunday afternoon at 4:30? Does all the money come in on Kansas City because folks are like, Chiefs at home, getting points, kind of what I just said before. You're right, Gary, and more questions about the Rams in that spot opening night, Stafford injury concerns, but I didn't expect Buffalo to do that. So I'm curious how this game begins. And also the one thing that was shown in the game last night that is true about the Chiefs. They are not as fast as they were with Tyreek Hill, but they are still certainly very capable of scoring in the red zone and figuring it out as best as possible. So, and you got a team like the Raiders who have played them well over the years, and they were desperate. But I just find that intriguing. Like, you've got a team down 14-0, 17-0. I don't think anyone in the world thought, Chiefs are done. They're going to roll over. Nope, that they thrive in that spot. In Buffalo, they thrive being up big.
But I will say, like, I feel like we talked a lot about the Chiefs that way a couple of years ago. Like, and it was really just about, well, how often are the Chiefs down 14, 17 points? You know, like, Mahomes doesn't get a chance to show this. Because I would say, if you're asking me what NFL team is most equipped to come back from a 21-point deficit, I would probably tell you the Bills, because they're a team that already favors the pass over the run. They're a team littered with explosive playmakers. There's some question marks in that secondary now, but I would actually say the Bills probably set up as the best team at coming back from a large deficit. So I just think it's sample size at this point. They're just so good. They haven't really gotten us a chance to show us that part of their toolbox yet, you know?
Fair enough. I mean, well, Kansas City, I'm pretty sure the year Kansas City won it when they beat Jimmy Garoppolo and the Niners, that was the year they were down 10 points in every game. They beat Houston. They beat, I forget who else they beat. Whatever. They did it. They beat someone else in the AFC game.
Tennessee the next week, I think.
Tennessee. Yes, I think you might be right. Tennessee hosted because I think they were the 1 seed.
Because remember, that was the big thing. It was like, oh, Tennessee, if they get a lead, can't beat that team. And Kansas City, I don't know if they can come back from these large deficits. And of course they can.
Yep. And that's true, right? Buffalo would have to be put in more situations. Right. That's true. You can't get in trouble for something you haven't done yet. And for the Bills, they have it. Their sample size is not big enough yet where you have to be like, that's a real concern. But they did it last week against a good team in the Ravens. It's not like they got behind Jacksonville and came back.
Are the Ravens just bad at protecting 3 touchdown leads? Maybe that's the thing.
Yeah. All right, LaMarca. Sorry, I'm been yapping to Gary in here. What do you got? What do you got for thoughts this week?
Well, first off, in that game, I'm probably just taking the fish play of the over. 54 points. That may seem a little high for the year 2022. We've seen a lot of low totals, a lot of unders, but these guys combined for 78 points last year in the playoffs. Each of the last 2 Chiefs games has gone over this number. And I think that the one thing we can agree on is whichever one of these teams falls behind, they're capable of catching them. Yeah. It's a game where both teams are going to have to play offense for 4 quarters. So I think over 54, I'm expecting this line to close 56, 57. I just don't, I think that the public's going to be all over it, the over, but I don't care. I like that bet. Even the one thing that jumped out to me, and I've kind of been driving this bandwagon, the Packers, they're favored by 7 points at home against the Jets. I have faded the Packers the last 2 weeks as big favorites, right? They closed as -9.5 against the Giants in London. They were favored by 9.5 against the Patriots. Right. I think that the hatred has probably gone a little bit too far on Green Bay. This number was 9.5 on the advanced line. It's now down to 7. Aaron Rodgers,
right. It was 7.5 yesterday. So you're getting a better number here.
Rodgers historically just a dominant home favorite quarterback. And the Jets scoreline last week was obviously very deceptive. It was like a 2-point game or a 5-point game entering the fourth quarter. And it just got out of hand from there. No Tua Tagovailoa, no Teddy Bridgewater.
Skylar Thompson,
really care that the Jets put up 40 and beat the Dolphins' 3rd-string quarterback. So I think that this is a prime get-right spot for the Packers. I'll probably be laying the 7 with them.
Okay, fair. You're a man of fairness as a Jets fan.
And by the way, just because we all know that I love to toot my own horn, another 4-1 week for the kid.
Oh,
22-3 on the year.
I was gonna cut you off and say before Matt says anything, we should preface this by saying he's 22-3 on the year.
damn,
22 and
dude.
3.
Okay, what underdogs do you like this week then? Because you don't like the
Too
Jets.
early to really dive into all of that stuff.
Excuse
but-
me. Sorry to bug you, sir. I mean, you need to wait later in the week for your great record to continue to get better.
So I like the Giants again, I think. I have that spread calculated at 3.5 points. They're getting 5.5. The Ravens are good, but I don't think the Giants are fraudulent, right? Like I think they're a decent football team. It's down to 5 now. I think that's a reasonable number to target the Giants. Let's see here. The Steelers. I might have some interest in the Steelers catching 8.5 points. Obviously things did not go well last game for them against the Bills, but the Bills are just the best team in the league, and it's really not even that close. Tampa Bay struggled to put away a Falcons team last week. I think that Mike Tomlin, we always talk about him being a great underdog coach. I think this is a spot where you could potentially look to buy low on the Steelers. That's another team that I'm looking at here.
Yep.
Actually, on that same point, like I would say one of the spreads that jumped out to me, and I know they're the only remaining undefeated team against the spread this season, but I feel like that 49ers Falcons game turns out a lot like the 49ers Seahawks game we saw back in week 2, where you've got an offense that, they're frisky, they've got a mobile quarterback, they make stuff happen, but Seattle's defense
San Fran.
San
Francisco's defense is incredible. And I just don't see Atlanta being able to move the football all that effectively. I think maybe it's not a pretty cover. Like it might be 24-14, 24-7, 20-7, something like that. But I just don't see the Falcons scoring that many points against the 49ers. And I think San Francisco can find its way to 2 touchdowns. So
Niners just lost Emmanuel Mosley for the year too. So that defense does take a hit. Yeah, I think LaMarca, and I gave you a hard time when you first said it, but I actually kind of agree with you in the sense that this to me, and I talked to Jeff about this last night, Jeff Ulrich. This feels like a wait and see week where you want to try to see what the number is at the end of the week and then go against the other side based on where all the public money's coming in. Unless, of course, you like one of these big dogs. Like, for example, Carolina was getting 11 yesterday. It's now down to 10.5. I'm not sure folks are going to trust Tampa to cover a big number again because, like you mentioned, the Falcons, they did not put them away. You could have got this at 9.5 yesterday. But a San Francisco team, like to Garian's point, I'm curious if this even gets closer to a touchdown. You could even wait because folks might take the cheese on how good San Francisco's defense has been. There are some spots on here that I find, even this one too, like does Kansas City, after pulling out a win last night, while it was close, to a lot of folks look at it and say, well, I'm going to bet the Chiefs on the points, and then maybe you get closer to a pick 'em in this case. Maybe you like Buffalo. So to me, I don't know. It feels like this might be more of a week where we're going to wait it out a little bit, see where all the money's coming in, and then maybe go against the other side, go against the public side. And because dogs have been doing well. Another over 500 week for the underdogs on Sunday. They went 8-6.
There's just some weird lines this week, if we're being honest. There's a lot of home dogs. I mean, look, I think you're right. I think some of these lines are going to move significantly across the course of the week. And actually that's, you kind of cut me off the pass there. I think I would bet San Francisco now because I think that number could get to 6.5 if you do like the San Francisco side of things.
Right. That's my point. So if you like them now, go get them. But there are some like this feels fishy. Bengals only losing 2 to the Saints. Like that's like, Joe Burrow back in New Orleans, I suppose. That's a good storyline. Former LSU Tiger, but that feels too good to be true. But I like your calls there, LaMarca. Giants for sure. Okay, real quick, LaMarca, do you think the Giants at any chance does that line go to 6 or 7?
I mean, I saw it at 5.5 earlier. So if anything, it seems like it's moving in the other direction. And that's it. I like both teams in that game. Like I'm higher than most on the Ravens, right? They're 3-2, but they've trailed for like such a small majority of the season. they could very easily have a better record. I really like what they got going on with Daboll in New York. I think he's doing a fantastic job. I mean, they beat the Packers with no wide receivers last week. Pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
And they looked like it. Look, it's not a high bar, but the second half against the Packers was probably the best their offense has looked all season. Like, it wasn't a lot of the time you watch the Giants games and you're like, that was all the defense. That was all some interesting play sequencing. Like, not that they're getting away with it somehow, but it wasn't dominance by any means. But their offense looked legitimately good in the second half. So if you're just seeing like small progressions week to week from Daniel Jones, who again has all the talent in the world, it's just about someone being able to harness it and kind of control him a little bit.
And Saquon's going to do one or two things a week that you're just like, wow, I don't know if there's another running back in the league that can do that.
Daboll has coached the crap out of Daniel Jones. That is true. He is coaching every ounce out of this football team, and they've yet to be blown out. They've been in every game, even the game against Dallas, where Dallas, I think, scored a late, if I remember correctly, it was a late touchdown Monday Night Football, and then the Giants.
It was tied, I think, at one point.
Was it? Okay.
The Giants were up a touchdown in that game, and then the Cowboys kind of took over in the fourth quarter.
Right. But then the Giants had a shot. Jones threw the pick at the end of the game to end it, but the Giants had a chance. Yeah. So, yeah, they're hanging around. We could do this all night, but we need to go because there is a Madden Sim starting in a couple minutes. Guys, good job. You were both very professional today, despite your baseball teams losing over the weekend.
Thanks.
So keep it up.
I love to hear every reference to it as much as possible.
I mean, I think I speak for Gary and when I say that we both have plenty of experience with that. Mm-hmm. So,
okay. Well, good. Then that's too bad. Gary, and hopefully you have a quarterback this week in Miami.
Yeah.
And Lamarca. Yeah, and Lamarca's already told you he thinks the Packers are being disrespected against his Jets. So
in the span of a week, I had Tua, Bridgewater, and George Springer all get a concussion. So, I'm happy.
Yours truly has zappy fever. I like the Pats getting the 3 points this week against Cleveland.
Zappy kid.
Yeah.
Can I ask, how can Zappy be the reincarnation of Mac? Of Brady, if Mac is also still the reincarnation of Brady? Like, how does that work?
I'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
There is half a Brady, kid. You put them together, you got a full Brady.
On that note, thanks to Eamon and Pike behind the scenes for getting us up and running tonight. For Gary and Thor, Matt Lamarca, Brendan Glasheen, you all have a great rest of your night. The Golf Gurus are here tomorrow night from 5 to 6-ish. And then you get the Sweat as well at 11 a.m. See you guys later.